Welcome back to Unit 2 of this 7-week course, Effortless Website Design. In this unit, you will gain an understanding of HTML, the essential markup language of the web. We'll also look at a global page structure. There are two types of websites found on the World Wide Web, static and dynamic websites. Static websites consist of a folder with web page files. The folder is stored on the server. Every page is another file and written in HTML. Static website content can only be altered by the web designer. The advantages of static websites are their affordability, to design and to host, as well as the time it takes to create them are reasonably shorter than dynamic websites. We will learn to create static websites in this course. It's an excellent starting point in learning to design websites. A dynamic website can give the website owner the ability to simply update and add new content to the site. For example, news and events could be posted to the site through a simple browser interface. Dynamic features of a site are only limited by imagination. Some examples of dynamic website features could be content management systems, e-commerce systems, bulletin or discussion boards, intranet or extranet facilities, the ability for clients or users to upload documents, the ability for administrators or users to create content or add information to a site, which is also referred to as dynamic publishing. Dynamic websites cost more to host and require more extensive coding knowledge. Therefore, it isn't ideal as a first website project. We've seen in Unit 1 that the Internet is a worldwide network of computers, and there are numerous ways to communicate over the Internet. Email, transfer of files, log in remotely to a distant computer, or to view hypertext multimedia files or web pages. Remember Berners-Lee and the World Wide Web that I've mentioned in Unit 1? www, or the World Wide Web, is the most popular segment of the Internet. It is a virtual network of websites connected through hyperlinks. All computers can read or view web pages if they have a web browser installed. We've also mentioned in Unit 1 that examples of web browsers are Google Chrome, Internet Explorer, Mozilla Firefox, Safari, and Opera, to name a few. To view a web page, simply type in the web address or URL into the address bar of the web browser. The web browser will perform the request using HTTP to a remote computer. The web server receives and processes the HTTP request from the browser, processes any scripts, and then sends the file encoded with hypertext markup language to the initial browser. The browser interprets the HTML and outputs what it interprets to your computer screen. And that is what you see as the website or web page. HTML, hypertext markup language, is the standard markup language for creating web pages and web applications. HTML describes the structure of a web page semantically. Along with cascading style sheets, or CSS, and JavaScript, or JS, it forms a triad of cornerstone technologies for the World Wide Web. HTML can embed programs written in a scripting language, such as JavaScript, which affect the behavior and content of web pages. Inclusion of CSS defines the look and layout of content. HTML files are specially formatted documents that can contain links, text, images, and other media. HTML's speciality is the ability to link documents electronically using hyperlinks. But what does hypertext mean? It means text that goes beyond text. Let me illustrate. When you've located a web page using a web browser, you see this: a web page with headings, paragraphs, photos, logos, columns, and various colors. But in reality, the page consists of this. What do you see? Text or code? Most web browsers allow you to see what is underneath when you search under Developer or Developer Tools or something similar. For example, with Chrome and Internet Explorer, you will find it in the taskbar under Developer Tools. In Mozilla Firefox, you will find it under Developer and Page Source. Once you click on it, it opens a new window or splits the screen in two for you to see the code. It is a great way to learn too. When you find a website you like, see what the code looks like. This is what an all HTML web page looks like. It means it has no other scripting or coding language incorporated in it and consists only of HTML. It consists of text, but the text serve as commands and therefore perform more than just their textual duty. I like to explain it like the game Simon Says. Do you remember the game you used to play in preschool? Simon Says is a child's game for 3 or more players, where one player takes the role of Simon and issues instructions. Usually physical actions such as jump in the air or stick out your tongue to the other players, which should only be followed if prefaced with the phrase Simon Says. For example, Simon says jump in the air, and then everybody has to jump in the air. But if you don't say Simon Says, you are not supposed to jump in the air. The HTML page is like Simon telling the web browser how to visually interpret the commands it gives them. Let's look at that simple web page again. It contains content of headers, subheaders, paragraphs, photographs, a list, an address, and a link to an email address. HTML elements are the building blocks of HTML pages. With HTML constructs, images and other objects, such as interactive forms, may be embedded into the rendered page. It provides a means to create structured documents by denoting structural semantics for text, such as headings, paragraphs, lists, links, quotes, and other items. HTML elements are delineated by tags written using angle brackets. Tags such as image and input introduce content into the page directly. Others, such as paragraph, surround and provide information about document text and may include other tags as sub-elements. Browsers do not display the HTML tags, but use them to interpret the content of the page. HTML has undergone various versions since its inception in 1991 as version 1.0. Version 1.0 included only 20 elements, 13 of which were still part of HTML 4.01. In 1998, HTML 4.01 included CSS, an easier way to control presentational elements such as color, fonts, and backgrounds. HTML5 is the latest version since 2008 and is still a work in progress. This is the specification that will be worked on for the next decade at least, so the process of its development is relatively slow and considered. Many parts will be familiar, but there's also plenty of new elements, attributes, and abilities to get excited about. It contains new features such as Canvas, an element for two-dimensional drawing, video and audio elements for media playback, support for local storage, and new content-specific elements such as article, footer, header, navigation, and section. The rules it will adhere to are among new features should be based on HTML, CSS, DOM, and JavaScript, reduce the need for external plugins such as Flash Player, better error handling, more markup to replace scripting. HTML5 should be device independent, and the development process should be visible to the public. You can view their progress here if you are interested to see the latest developments. Although browsers don't support all the features of HTML5 yet, all major browsers continue to add new HTML5 features to their latest versions. To see how well your installed web browser version performs with HTML5, you can visit this website. You can also compare it to other web browsers and their HTML5 support level. Let's look at the global page structure of a basic HTML web page. Something that looks like this in your web browser. When we view the code, it will look like this. Too overwhelming? Let's break it down to understand what it all means. Look at the first line. Exclamation mark, doc type, HTML. This is referred to as the document type declaration, and it illustrates what version of HTML it is written in. It tells the browser in what dialect it is written in and how to interpret that. The doc type should always be the first item at the top of all your HTML files. The rest of the page consists of tags. As I have mentioned, before every element in an HTML page, they need to be sandwiched in between an HTML tag. HTML tags work in pairs, an opening or starting tag and a closing or ending tag. There are some exceptions, and the relevant tags will be discussed later on in the unit. Let me illustrate how tags work by using an analogy. Say we're going to lunch, and we were going to visually illustrate that using code. Lunch would have a starting time, an open tag, and an end time or closing tag. Opening tags are indicated using an opening and a closing bracket to envelop the command. The brackets indicate to the web browser that this text should not be interpreted as plain text, but as a command that requires interpretation and action. And do you see the closing tag differs slightly from the opening tag by the inclusion of a / before the word? Good. Let's elaborate on what was consumed during lunch. Let's imagine our lunch consisted of a tomato and cheese sandwich with tea. How we'd write that in code is as follows. We'll specify that we ate a sandwich and drank tea. The sandwich needs an opening and closing tag. Inside the sandwich, we have a list of ingredients and we'll like to specify them in our coded lunch. So we'll create a list and then specify each ingredient separately in between an opening and closing pair tag to illustrate the list items, namely bread, cheese, and tomato. You can see we've specified that a list is to follow by the unordered list pair tag. Now we will specify each item separately, like so. You can see each item is preceded by an opening list item tag and followed by a closing list item tag individually. We have specified 2 slices of bread because a sandwich is made with 2 slices. HTML works in a linear structure. Thus, you'd always close an element with the tag in the same reverse order it was opened. And what about the tea? Well, it isn't inside the sandwich, right? But it is still consumed within the lunch hour, so it will be placed in here. The tea will also consist of a pair with an opening and closing tag respectively. I think you get the idea. Let's apply this knowledge to actual HTML code. Remember the doc type? It always appears first, so we type it in. Then you start by inserting an HTML tag. This lets the browser know that everything sandwiched in between is indeed HTML code. You know what a tag is by now, right? With an opening and closing tag, it's like the lunch tag. Everything in between the opening and closing tag indicates it is part of this one HTML page. Now follows the head and body tags. The head contains all the metadata and styles, which are all the elements you don't see on the page, but what tells the browser how to perform and interpret what it sees. The body contains the actual data or information of the web page, otherwise referred to as the content. This is where the paragraphs, images, and so forth you can identify on the page are kept. The title tag is contained inside the head tags. It is essential and found in all HTML pages. It might seem insignificant, but it is very necessary. It defines a title in the browser toolbar. It provides a title for the page when it is added to favorites, and it displays a title for the page in search engine results. Never omit it. Let's have a look at some necessary HTML elements, such as headings. The H stands for heading or headline, and the following number indicates its importance, not necessarily its size, which can be altered with CSS at a later stage. It is imperative to use these in succession of importance. You can have multiple instances of each, heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, etc., that would indicate the same level of importance. It is important to embed headings into your HTML page to increase search optimization when users search for the web page using a browser. Let's look at text. Large bodies of text, such as paragraphs, are contained in between the P tags. Please note that HTML tags are case sensitive, so you will always write it with a lowercase p. The text editor doesn't adhere to enter as a line break indicator. It has to be coded using the break tag. This is one of those tags that are the exception, because it does not operate in pairs. Do take note that in older versions of HTML, the break line tag is written with a backslash in front of it. Now let's look at lists. First, we have to specify if it is an ordered or an unordered list. An ordered list will be written with an OL pairing tag, and an unordered list will be written with the UL pair tags. And then we obviously have to list each item, nestled in between the list item tag, or the LI tag. Images are another tag that is an exception to the rule. The image tag can apply to photos as well as graphics, illustrations, and logos. All images should be saved as JPEG, PNG, or GIF. JPEGs are best for photos and illustrations. GIF work best for vectors, specifically flat-colored shapes. And PNG are used for transparent background images. The SRC indicates the source of the image. We will discuss the correct way to save and structure images at a later stage. Note the source is in between quotation marks. It contains the specific URL where that image is found online. The image tag is one of the exceptions that don't use a closing tag. The div tag is used to indicate a united block of information. In HTML alone, it doesn't appear too impressive, but used in conjunction with CSS, it helps to create exciting multiple column layouts. We will look more intensely at this tag in the near future. The hyperlink tag is what made the World Wide Web accessible to a wider audience. This tag enables multiple web pages to be linked with each other through a highlighted word or image. The HTML A tag defines a hyperlink. A hyperlink or link is a word, group of words, or image that you can click on to jump to another document or another page. When you move the cursor over a link in a web page, the arrow will turn into a little hand. The most important attribute of the A element is the hyperreference attribute, which indicates the link's destination, or its hypertext reference. When you see an underscore and blank, it means that it should be opened or it will be opened in a new window. Note the quotation marks. What is contained in between them is the web address. By default, links will appear as follows in all browsers. An unvisited link is underlined and blue. A visited link is underlined and purple. An active link is underlined and red. Congratulations! You've completed Unit 2. There are many more HTML tags that you can learn, but in this unit we focused on the most often used HTML tags and the tags you need to familiarize yourself with. We looked at the structure of a basic global page and learned various HTML tags that are essential to know for all web creators.